Now let's solve valid anagram. The way we're going to solve this problem is very simple. We have a string s, we have a string t. We're going to create two maps, and in each map we're going to store the characters that appear in string s in one map and the characters that appear in string t in another map. What we're also going to store in our map is the number of times that these characters appear in their respective strings. And then what we're going to do is we're basically going to check if one map contains a character that the other one doesn't, and then we just immediately return false. And if a character appears in both maps, what we're going to do then is we're going to check the number of times that it appears in each map, which means the number of times it appears in each string. And if those aren't the same, then we also return false. And if the two aforementioned conditions are met, then we just return true. So let's create our two maps now. Map which has a key value pair of character to integer, character being the actual character that we're on, and integer being the frequency or the number of times it appears in each string. Map 1 is going to be designated to string s. So map character integer map 1 is equal to new hash map. And similarly for the second map, character to integer, map 2 is equal to new hash map. So map 2 is going to be for string t. Now we need to fill up our maps. So for every character c in s.to character array, and the way we're going to fill our maps is the following. So what we're going to do is for every character in our string s to character array, map 1 dot put as a key, we're going to put the character which we're on, which is c, and as a value what we're going to put is, well, if c already exists in our map, then we're going to get its value and add 1 to it. So if c already exists in our map, we're going to check how many times it's already appeared in our map before and add 1 to account for the current character that we're on. And if it doesn't exist in our map, then we're going to default its value to 0. So this is the first time we're seeing this character, and then we're going to add 1 to that so we can account for the current character which we're on. So map1.put c, and so the way we're going to do that is map1.put expects a key and a value, and the value is going to be map1.get or default the value which we're on if it already exists in our map, otherwise default it to 0 and add 1. And then we're going to do the same thing for map 2, just like that. Now what we need to do is we need to check if a key or a character exists in one map that doesn't exist in the other map, and so we immediately return false. And the second thing we need to check is that if a character does appear in one of our maps, we need to check the number of times or the value that it appears in our map, and we need to compare it to the number of times that it appears in the other map. And if these values are not the same, then again we immediately return false. Otherwise, if both these conditions are met, then we return true. So for every character key in map1 dot key set, so we're going to loop through all the keys in our map1. In other words, we're going to loop through all the characters in our map1. Now we're going to check if that key which we're currently on exists in map2. So if map2 dot contains key, what's the key we have to input? That would be this key which we're currently on. But this checks if map2 contains that key. We want to check if map2 doesn't contain that key, and if it doesn't, then just return false. Otherwise, so if map2 does contain that key, we want to compare the number of times that it appears in map2 or in string t. So we need to compare the values in each map of that character. So else if map1 dot get the value of key dot equals map2 dot get value of key, but this checks if it's equal to what we want to check if it's not equal to. So if the value of key in map1 is not equal to the value of the key in map2, then also return false. Otherwise, if we successfully terminate from this for loop, which would be right here, then we just return true. Now before I submit, there is one more thing I want to do, and that's going to make our code more efficient, and that's the fact that if we have a string s and a string t that are not of equal length, that means one of the strings has a character that the other one doesn't, and so that means that they are not anagrams, and we can just instantly return false. And that's what I'm gonna do right now. So simply, before we do any of this code, we're just gonna check if s dot length is not equal to t dot length, and then so we return false. Now before I submit, actually I'm glad I noticed this now. We have a very small typo right here. We want to fill our map2 with the characters of t, and what I did was I was looping through the characters of s again, so we need to just change this to t.toCharacter array, and now we can finally submit and see if everything's working. And there we go. So that was the valid anagram problem on LeetCode. I hope you found that video helpful, and thanks for watching.